response video. It's going to have physics in it, so, you know, that turns you off, then buzz off. But it starts off polluted by more of Hythloday's crap. I wish you wouldn't combine the crap philosophy conversation with the physics conversation. But anyway, so he's, in my opinion, again, mischaracterizing, lying, okay, about events.
Physics, inmendham's model, and his constant aspersions of lying and liars. Yes, I mean, look, I made a video, and I'll probably attach it, demonstrating that I'm not a liar.
Well, first off, you didn't demonstrate that you're not a liar. There's about 100 different accusations of lying. And on this one particular one, again, it's contextual. And so if you said 99 out of 100 times my shirt is red, and then one time in 100 you said your shirt was blue, and I paraphrased you as thinking your shirt is blue, that would be an incorrect paraphrase. It would just be a lie to the truth. It wouldn't be fair to the truth. To argue that I make videos talking about the braining, again, the only context I did that in was with the modern mystic. They weren't part of any of the current conversation, and that's a fact. And you only found it in titles, which again just points out that you're willing to resort to some sort of, well, technically you once said it was blue. Well, so what? The preponderance of the times I said it, this is what I said, and you're just distorting the historical record, so to speak, to imply something else. It's like when people try to make Einstein into a theist. They ignore the 99 times he says, I'm a believing God like Spinoza's God, you know, the universe is God. They ignore that, just keep saying, because once in a while he said something pretty theistic, that let's just pretend he didn't say the other shit. And that's all you were using it for. So you're perverting the context for your purposes. In my opinion, that's propaganda, and in my opinion, propaganda is fundamentally just lying, because it distorts perspective. It's dishonest to perspective. Rose colors are brown colors, the glasses.
Him kind of the liar, accusing me of lying in regards of, what was it? Oh, that's it, the brain doing the braining business, yeah? And I showed...
Totally trivial element. So you pick a circumstance that's just not really one of the big ones, not one that I isolated as a big mistake. And again, it was entirely your use of the context, your implication of how I was using those terms, and that was the biggest part of your lie, is that I never used them in the way you implied I used them.
You know, 2 or 3 examples of him using this phrase. Certainly text relating to videos.
Yeah, titles related to videos. And again, conversations where that was the play between me and the modern mystic, was coming up with these me brain concepts instead of saying my brain or I.
And when I first said this and implied that he might have said it, you know, he dismissed it as, that's another lie. Well, he's accused Pyro of lying about his speed velocity issue, the speed constant.
Yeah, he's lying about the argument we had and what side who was on. I was making this simple rational argument that physics creates, physics as known, or whatever, however you want to describe it, paradoxes that can't be, because light can't go faster than the speed of light.
Of the speed of light. And again, he's incorrect. Again, Pyro is correct.
This is silly. No, Pyro is absolutely not correct in his paraphrase of the circumstance, because I never said anything goes faster than the speed of light. And to say that if 2 trains are heading for each other at 80 miles an hour, the trains are really moving 160 miles an hour would be stupid. They're not. Neither train is moving 160 miles an hour. So it's just a silly, your argument is just fucking silly on its face. But the physics is interesting, so let's get to that.
Because he's still maintaining, you see, you have something which he says is going at the speed of light. Let's try and get this arrow's business working correctly. And he also says there's another particle possible of having the speed of light. Yeah? So the velocity difference is still absolute in his mind. Yeah? So you have
the velocity difference. Again, the difference is irrelevant to velocity. Something's velocity is not affected by something else's velocity. So how fast this finger's moving and how fast this finger's moving, this finger is in no way changed by this one. The only thing that will change is the amount of time it will take for those two to intersect. And that time will be less. That's a fact. But how fast the individuals are going will not be changed.
A relative velocity of twice the speed of light. If these
well, again, you're calling it a relative velocity. I'm saying there is no such thing as a relative velocity. There's only absolute velocities and directions. And it's the incident of direction that's creating this problem you're creating. And by make them go the opposite way, and then your argument would be they're moving half the speed of light. Well, they're not. You know, it wouldn't even be half the speed of light. What would it be? Because they would never intersect, so you'd have no way to measure.
Want to be in direct collision. Yeah, it shows you the need for. I'm focusing on the picture rather than on my.
I mean, I suppose you could argue that if they're moving in opposite directions that they have no velocity, because they will never intersect, because that's all we're measuring is the intersection point.
The 2D picture rather than on my fingers, so the 2D is taking away my 3D perspective and ability to touch my fingers. But yeah, so Pyro is right. He is. And so
well, he's not right. Again, you keep saying he's right. He said I suggested something could move faster than the speed of light, and that didn't happen. The way he said what he said is incorrect. It does not correctly describe the circumstance. So again, you're just lying for a liar. You're just now perverting a circumstance you don't have even knowledge of and saying somehow he's right in lying about what I said, because I didn't say that, stupid fuck. That wasn't my explanation, and it wasn't my argument, asshole.
Oh, if one of the particles is coming in at angled velocity, they have something in between 1 times, say 1.5 the speed of light.
Again, they don't have any of that. They have not changed their velocities at all. The trains don't go faster because they're moving towards each other. It's just as stupid for you to put that conditional on and say, if they're moving towards each other, they're moving faster. No. The time of intersection will be quicker. They're not moving faster. The time of collision will be sooner. The time of interaction. If one is standing still and one's moving 80 miles an hour and it takes 10 minutes for them to intersect, yes, if both of them are moving 80 miles an hour, it'll take 5 minutes for them to intersect. That's the fact. And it's true of light.
Yeah. So he's not taken on the constancy of speed of light idea. He's the measurement of the constancy of the speed of light is the problem.
The measurement of the constancy of the speed of light is the problem. I'm saying it's not really a problem, but your example that you're going to give now can't happen. We can't measure the speed of light by looking at a star and measuring how fast the light gets here. You can't do it that way. You have to have an incident point. You have to have a point where you say go, and then you have another point where you say finish. You can't say go and finish to light coming at you. So that experiment can't work. You have to shoot light to a mirror on the moon and back and do that kind of stuff to really measure the speed of light. You have to be able to control the incidence, the creation point, the starting line.
He's not addressed the idea that if some beam of light from a star is coming at the speed of light, when the planet is hurtling towards it, we still detect the speed of light, and then when it's hurtling away from it, we still detect the speed of light.
He's calling it hurtling when you're moving 1/1,000,000th the speed. Okay, so you know we're talking about miles per hour versus miles per second. First off, I don't think we can measure the speed of light to the accuracy required to even account for the speed, all the combined speed within the solar system. But let's say we can. The argument then is, okay, that these are absolute velocities. And so when the two things are moving closer to each other, so when the solar system is moving in a certain direction, well, see, you have to use the moon because it's, but you know, I suppose you can bounce light off of something else, but again, you have to be able to control the start and go. So you really can only use rotation, the Earth's rotation, when you're reflecting light off the moon. And that rotation isn't very fast. But my argument would still be that when you're absolutely moving toward and when you're absolutely moving away, what you're also doing is you have that real velocity issue, which means that your atomic structure is changed. You're acquiring more arrows in a direction. So you're composed of more arrows moving in the direction of your absolute velocity. And so it's sort of like merging traffic, right? So one could argue quite, I think, reasonably, that what balances perception of time, or perception of the movement of the speed of light, what balances the perception of it, the measurement of it, is the fact that you have to merge with the atomic structure. So if I have more arrows moving in a direction, I'm going that away. So I'm made up of more arrows going that away. Photons will be more likely, there's a higher probability that I will absorb a photon if it's going in the direction I'm going. If I try to merge and we're going into each other, our velocities are opposite, then when the photon comes in, it's going to meet more resisting arrows, more kinetic arrows going this way, which it goes right through, right, because of that kinetic paradox. So instead of being absorbed, it won't be absorbed. So it's less likely to be absorbed, and that would change the way we measure the light, because we're not seeing the light, so to speak. So I could theoretically argue that if you were moving faster and faster in the same direction as a light beam, so there's a light beam shooting across, and you start moving in the same direction as that light beam, and you keep going faster and faster and faster and faster, the light will get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer till there is no light, because you're moving as fast as the light, theoretically. Can't do it as a reality, but I'm just saying if you could, that would explain why you don't see any light eventually. It's because you see less and less light as you go. Anyway, alright, so further, so the point would be is that there's that time dilation thing. Your clock changes depending on whether you're moving towards something or away from something, and so time dilation doesn't go both ways, but it is changed when you're moving towards each other than away from each other. All time dilation scenarios use the idea of us leaving the Earth at a velocity, so our velocity differences are great. They don't use scenarios where you're moving towards the Earth, and that's probably a difference. How do I best explain that? Well, I don't want to get into that argument because we do run into paradoxes. But anyway, let's see where else you go here. I mean, I sort of wanted to get to redshift. Redshift is sort of a giveaway, right? Because if you think of light as a stream of dots with a separation of distance, you can sort of understand that if I'm moving towards something and it starts redshifting, okay, that you're now absorbing, you're interacting with more dots because they're coming faster, because, you know, they're blue shift. So their blue shift is, I'm moving towards something that's moving towards me, there'll be a blue shift. And the blue shift is sort of an acknowledgement that even though that light's still only moving the speed of light, as each second ticks, I'm absorbing more than would be accounted for if I wasn't moving towards it. So it's just a fact that I am absorbing more of it, even though it still seems like the light's moving the speed of light. as we pass each other, yes, the relative appearances, they won't be the speed of light. It'll be faster. I won't see it. It won't see me, in a sense, because the relative condition makes it impossible. And I think that's true. I don't. This is, you know, this is called theoretical, you know, because you can't do these experiments. But I'm saying, if you do the experiment, it's like the stupid mirror experiment as a timekeeper in space. It doesn't work. That clock won't work either. Because as you move, you'll move away from the thing that you're trying to measure. It will fuck your clock.
He still maintains that the speed of light is relative.
No, again, so again, I mean, you don't call this almost a huge perversion? I've only said it as often, and I've said it. I don't even think there's a time where I ever said it's relative. Ever. I don't even think you could find the 1 in 100 times where I talked about my blue relative collar. Every fucking time I've said this over and over again. Velocity is absolute. There's no relative velocity. You either have the arrows moving in a direction or you don't. You either have more arrows going in one direction than another direction, or you don't. Period. There's no relative. You have an absolute velocity, and your velocity is relative to everything else in the sense that other things are moving, but there's no such thing as relative velocity in the sense that somehow your velocity is different. No, your velocity remains the same. You either have the arrows or you don't have the arrows. Nobody can project them into you or make you go faster than the limitation of all your matter moving in one direction. The school of fish can only move school of fish speed. That's it. It can only move as fast as the fish can move. It can't move faster than the fish.
Not truly constant.
Well, again, so you don't think that's just a huge perversion of what I have said? I mean, let's play that again. Where I've ever even suggested that's possible, and you're claiming I've said it, or I am saying it. I don't even want to imply it.
Is relative, not truly constant.
There we go. No, it's truly constant. And the only thing that breaks that perception of constancy is the fact that your mechanism for measuring it breaks. You have a different scale. Your rulers change. The ruler changes when you start moving. And which direction you're moving will change the ruler in that direction.
The idea of relativity, strangely, is that speed is relative, sure, generally speaking, except when it comes to measuring speed of light.
Except when it comes to measuring the speed. Well, again, you can only measure the speed of light in a controlled experiment where you're bound by relativity. I mean, the sense that we're relative to the moon kind of thing, or some other body to which you have already a consistent circumstance. So you first have to have a consistency with the source. Either we're the source. I don't think there's any... We could make the moon the source and bounce the light off the earth and then bounce it back to the moon or something like that, I suppose. So you can make the moon the source. But you have to control the source. You have to control the starting line. And that's the only way you can make a measurement. And if you're controlling the starting line, you're already in relative proximity. You can't control the starting line in the absolute universe. We don't have access to that. We can't time something that way.
And inmendham ought to grow up with all these lie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've explained. You know, you might think. I think you ought to grow up. You make arrogant, obnoxiously patronizing accusations that you've based on no facts. You claim you've done something you haven't done, which is make an argument of some kind. I mean, you're the one that needs to grow up all right, and recognize that you can't offend people's intelligence and expect them to say thank you, appreciate it. You can't. All right, so fuck you and this bullshit. You're the one with this assertion. All right, you're the one making these accusations. In my opinion, you've backed up with nothing. I'm backing mine up with, this is my experience. You haven't done that. You haven't said to me, it's my experience that my sensations are nothing. I should react to them exactly like they are nothing. I have some wacky emotional sense that they're something, but I know intellectually that they're nothing. Okay, they have no meaning. Because that's the implications. Look, either all feelings matter or no feelings matter, but you can't have the duplicity, the obvious duplicity of my feelings matter, their feelings don't, is just fucking silly. I'm conscious, they're not really consciousness. I'm the real thing, they're fake. Silly. So I mean, either you're having a real negative experience or you're not. And if you don't believe you're having a real negative experience, then how the fuck can you possibly justify reacting as if you are?
Claims of lying, you know.
Yeah, well, again, that's what you do. You just did it. You just demonstrated exactly how much you don't give a fuck about the truth by implying that somehow I've argued in defense of some sort of relative motion, and I never have. It's just a terrible, awful, disgusting thing to put in my mouth when I've never said it, you fucker. I mean, even before I understood, you know, this new concept of exchanging directional information and all this other crap, I still didn't believe in relativity. I mean, I still had no way to conceive of how anything could be aware of some sort of relative position and therefore behave differently. It doesn't make any sense. It's silly. It's just silly. The idea of the space expanding is silly.
I wonder whether inmendham would understand that. Inmendham.
Yeah, I can make the same argument to you. Can you possibly understand? Can't you sit there and look upon reflection that yes, you're making obnoxious, bold accusations about other people's character and intelligence, and you're not backing them up with anything called a rational argument. You're just saying, I say so. Or Hume says so. That's it.
Particle. Speed of light, yes. In your theory, yes. Constant. Whichever way it goes. Particle 2. The question is about the relative velocities.
Again, relative velocity is an idiotic notion. This moves 80 miles an hour, this moves 80 miles an hour. The fact if they're moving in the same direction that they will complete this time cycle sooner, and that their impact, okay, will have the force of their combined velocities, well, duh. I mean, but what does that have to do with any contention that I'm making that they're somehow actually moving faster? None. So to say that I'm saying their absolute speed is now 160 miles an hour is a lie. It's not.
What is the new velocity? What is the speed at which the distance contracts?
Well, again, so that's the definition of velocity, is what's the speed or the time it takes for the distance to contract. It's not the actual distance traveled by the individual thing moving. I mean, its velocity is the amount of distance it consumes. It's not about what the other guy's doing.
In your theory, it's twice the speed of light, right?
Wrong.
Einstein's theory, no.
Well, again, Einstein's theory can't be put to the test, but Einstein is wrong. You can't travel on a light beam. Matter can't move the speed of light. All of that is absolute rubbish. There is no matter that could ever move anywhere near the speed of light because it wouldn't be matter anymore. It would would be energy.
I mean, I like this idea, and in some sense, really, it's okay. You could reset the dial and say, actually, things can only go half the speed of light maximum.
Well, again, I just don't see any reason why anybody would ever presume that you combine individual speeds to decide how fast they're going. You don't. I don't combine the speed of two cars on the highway and say the guy was going, he was going 120 miles an hour when, no, he was going 60 miles an hour. The other guy was going 60 miles an hour. Obviously, when they hit each other, okay, the impact, you add the two velocities. Just as if they're going away from each other, you would find that you do the exact opposite and say minus 60 is 0. No chance of impact.
I don't think that would work, because, you know, even that would work, I don't think.
Okay, so we're done with that. Well, anyway. So yeah, I have to make some draft science videos, but other things to do, so I gotta move on. Just so many things to do. I just don't know what to... Yeah, I mean, really, I'm just so buried under a bunch of little nuisance crap shit I have to do. More coming, unfortunately, here, work-wise, so I'm just buried under it. Anyway, till next time.